Good morning, everyone. I wanted to make a video today for you themed around rounding because our review this week in the packets, if you chose to print them, were all about rounding. So I know when we learned about rounding in school, we had a little bit of difficulty with it, and my intention was to kind of continue to go back and review it with all of you, but here we are at our homes, unable to do that. So what I figured I would do is do a quick tutorial to remind you of how we learned how to round. So to do that, I'm going to do a 4-digit number, so a number that goes up to the thousands place. So the number that I'm going to choose is 3,462. And if you remember, when you get a number like this and someone says to estimate or round it, then you would usually round it to whatever place value they're asking you to. If it was a word problem where it didn't give you a specific place value, then you could round it to whatever one you're most comfortable with to get you to the most accurate or closest answer to the real answer. But where we're just going to round today without doing any multiplication or anything like that, I am going to say that we would like to round this number to the nearest 100. So I want to round 3,462 to the nearest hundreds place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that number that sits in the hundreds place. And for this number, that number is the number 4. So I'm going to underline the number 4. And I know when I round that I'm going to look at this number and I'm going to say, okay, the 4 is in the hundreds place. So this number is actually going to be closer to 3,000. Is it going to be closer to 3,400 or 3,500? Because we would never go backwards. We would never say 3,300. It's either going to be closer to the 400s or we could maybe round up to the 500s. So the best way to do this problem is to look at this on a number line, and that's how we practice it in school. And the reason that works best is because we're looking at the whole number and we're really figuring out, oh, that's why we're rounding it to 400 or we're rounding it to 500. We could all use all kinds of tips and tricks and say, oh, we can circle the number to the right, and if it's higher than 5, we would do this or do that. But we learned this year that although that is a trick and although that does work, it doesn't really give you the reason why, and number lines do. So what I would do is I would draw myself a number line. And on one end of the number line, I'm going to look at this and say, well, this could round to 3,400, because that 3 in the thousands place is going to stay the same because we're not rounding it to the nearest 1,000. We're rounding this to the nearest 100. And then on the other opposite end of my number line, I am going to write 3,500. Because that is our other choice. It can either stay at 400 or go up to 500. And the 3,000 stays the same. And then the rest of those numbers, the 6 and the 2 and the 10s and the 1s, turns to zeros. Then what I'll do is I'll find my midpoint on the line. Remember we did this in class? So I'm going to draw my midpoint and I'm going to say what number is halfway between 3,400 and 3,500. And I know that that number is 3,450 because 50 is in the middle between 400 and 500. So 3,450. Then I'm going to look at my number again, 3,462. And I'm going to look at the number line and say, where does that number fall? Is it after the midpoint, closer to 3,500, or before the midpoint, closer to 3,400? Well, I see that our number is 3,462. So when I'm looking at that 6, I know that 60 is going to be greater than 50 in the tens place. Therefore, that number is going to come after 3,450. So 3,462 on a number line is going to fall after the midpoint. 3,450, 3,462. Therefore, because of the location on the number line, I can now visually see which 4-digit number it rounds to. Is that number closer to 3,400 or 3,500? Well, you guys can tell it is actually closer to 3,500. So when I round 3,462 to the nearest hundreds place, it is closer to 3,500. And that's our answer, 3,500. Do we remember this now? Let's try another one. I'm going to go to a new screen. And this time, let's stay with a 4-digit number. Let's do 2,735. Okay, so there's our 4-digit number. And I want to round this number to the nearest tens place this time. So look at this number, boys and girls. What digit is sitting in the tens place? I hope that you said 3. So 3 is in the tens place. So that 3 right there is worth 30. So I am going to draw myself a number line to visually see where that number is going to fall. So when we round to the nearest 10, we don't have to worry about the 2 and the 7. That's going to stay the same because we're rounding to the nearest 10. So we're going to look at this and we're going to say, okay, 2,735. Is that closer to 2,730 or 2,740? Because we would round up. So down here on this side of the line, we're going to write 2,730 because we would never round it to 20. We want to know if it's closer to 30 or 40. And then on the other side of the line, we're going to write 2,740. All right, you know the next step. The next step is to find out what is our midpoint. What is halfway between 2,730 and 2,740? Well, 2,700 stays the same. So what is halfway between 30 and 40? I hope that you said it was 35. It is 35. Halfway between 30 and 40 is 35. And look at that. It actually matches our original number. So our original number just happens to fall directly in the middle between those two numbers when you round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to put a little point there because I don't need to write it anywhere because I see it. So what happens now? What happens when it is right smack in the middle? Do we round up or does it stay the same? I hope that you remember that when there is a 5, when it is in the middle, we always choose to round that number up. So, if we were rounding and there's a 5 right smack in the middle and that's where we're rounding at, we know we're always going to choose to round to the greater number. We're not going to round back. So, the answer to this problem is that 2,735 is going to be rounded to 2,740 because we go up when there's a 5. There's a few sayings that go with that. A few little like tricks and things that, we've practiced in class, I think, following that rounding up rule. But for now, I really just want you to think of a number line. I want you to kind of think more broadly and abstractly about this. I don't want you to rely on those tricks. I want you to think of where this number falls when we're looking at a line of numbers. So that's it for my video tutorial today. I plan on also posting another read aloud for you today for Wonder, and I hope that you will sit and enjoy it and read along with me if you can. Keep practicing your rounding. Next week, we're going to be focusing on reviewing place value. And so I think when we review place value, I'm also going to do a few more rounding lessons, just because I know that sometimes rounding is tricky. And I want to make sure you guys really understand that concept. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great Friday. Bye, guys.